What's your name?
My name is Johnny Doskow.
What's the name of your new book?
Goodnight EM.
What's the subhead of your book?
Baseball and Life Through Haiku.
If you write more than one haiku, what is the plural word for haiku?
It's haiku. It's like deer.
So singular and plural, it's haiku.
Yes, and Josh, I didn't know that. My original title for the book was Baseball Haikus. No, it was Haikus about baseball and life. And I sent it to my sister, and she said, that's all well and good, but haiku is singular and plural. I mean, I've seen it written where it's baseball haikus or something haikus, whatever, but it's actually haiku is singular and plural, so it's haiku.
Coming up on this edition of Life Around the Seams, we will give you just what you wanted. Grammar lessons. Lots and lots of grammar lessons. No, I'm just kidding. We have had Johnny Dee on this podcast before, and we laughed a lot discussing his life and his career when the coronavirus is not canceling the minor league baseball season. Doskow is the voice of the Sacramento River Cats. That's the Giants AAA affiliate. For his return to this podcast, we will use his new book, a collection of haiku, to talk about baseball and life. Johnny Doskow is next on Life Around the Seams.
Former Major League pitcher Jim Bouton once wrote, "You spend a good piece of your life gripping a baseball, and in the end, it turns out it was the other way around all the time." Welcome to Life Around the Seams, a podcast about baseball people who have interesting stories from between the lines, and sometimes even more interesting stories outside the lines. Here's your host, Josh Sushan.
All right, Mr. Doskow, it is good to see you via Zoom. We have talked many times during this pandemic. It is not the same not being able to go to Raley Field and welcome you to Isotopes Park, but I'm glad that we can catch up here.
That's right. Don't forget Sutter Health Park, new name.
That's right.
Sutter Health Park.
Okay, so we're going to get into haiku.
Yeah.
But first, let's make sure that everybody knows. According to Wikipedia, haiku is a type of short-form poetry originally from Japan. Now, in the traditional haiku structure, it is a poem that consists of 3 lines with 17 syllables in total. The first line is 5 syllables. The second line is 7 syllables. The third line is 5 syllables. Now, modern haiku vary widely on how much they follow these traditional elements, but would you say that your haiku follow the more modern approach, or that they follow the traditional, or a little bit of both?
Well, I would say traditional with the 5-7-5 for sure. Now, I know that a lot of traditional authors of haiku would say if you're not talking about nature, then it's not traditional haiku. But I disagree with that. I think haiku can be about anything. So I do the 5-7-5 format, and I stick with that. And they're not all about nature. Most about baseball.
How often are you writing one and you go, okay, this is like a 5-6-5 or this is a 5-9-5? It's like some weird double play. It's a 6-3 when it needs to be 5-7-5.
Right, like with the shift of 5-6-3, exactly. Right. Yeah. It's funny because there are some that I wrote originally that weren't right. Otherwise, they didn't fit, and you have to kind of structure it so it is 5-7-5. And my sister sent me some haiku that she wrote, and they weren't 5-7-5. And I said, those aren't 5-7-5. And she said, you know what? So what? Who's making the rules? So there are people who can, I think it's 5-7-5, but there are people that write them so-called haiku that maybe they aren't the traditional 5-7-5 syllables. But I don't know, man. To me, it's got to be 5-7-5 to be a real haiku. That's just me.
Well, you've been writing haiku for a while, and you've often sent them to me and other people. And but when did you first find that writing haiku was something that you enjoyed and that you excelled?
My brother, thank you for saying excel, but I will say that my brother got me into haiku when I was a lot younger. I used to write them all the time on Southwest flights. I read it on the Southwest magazine and write, 10, 15 every flight, but I never kept those. I regret that because you're kind of lost in your thoughts and you write these haiku and it was so much fun to write those on those Southwest flights, made the flight go faster. And, so it's something I've always loved to do. And so this was something that, writing them outside during the quarantine, I helped pass the time. And it was just very peaceful for me to go outside and write them. But I used to write them on Southwest flights all the time. And, the coast, we go to all these different cities. So they were fun to write.
So you're telling me that if I was on a Southwest flight and I was in the row or the seat that you were in just before, and I started to go through the Southwest magazine, I would see your haiku that you had written and left in front of me. I would get your haiku.
Absolutely. There are people that saw my haiku, strangers saw my haiku. I never took the Southwest flight magazine with me. It was idiotic. I probably would have had a collection before this because I feel I wrote some good haiku back in the day in the Southwest magazines. But yeah, if you would have picked up a magazine, you would have said, what is this guy's writing haiku about the sky and about this flight and what is going on here? So yeah, you definitely would have seen that for sure.
Well, maybe you just made that person's flight better. Maybe they tuned in to find out the 5 best steakhouses in Texas, and instead they got the wit and wisdom of Doskow.
Well, yeah, if they liked them, yeah. I mean, haiku's not for everybody, but yeah. So I think, people would have been. I had a nice little surprise if they would open up those magazines for sure.
All right. Well, it's a nice surprise opening up this book and going through them. And let's see. So I see page 199 is the last one. And the first one is on page 5. So 194, 195?
198 total.
198 total.
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
So how long does it take you to write 198? And how many ended up on the editing room floor for this?
Yeah. I wrote 440 and I wrote 440 and cut it down to 200. And then my wife and I kind of edited out 2 at the end, so it was 198. And the one that didn't make the book, that was the last cut, is one about Bo Jackson that will be in the next haiku book that I write. I think it's a wonderful haiku. We kind of went back and forth. She said, I don't know if that fits. And so she went out, and we ended up going with 198 total. But I think it's a good Bo Jackson haiku. I really do. And I think baseball fans and football fans baseball fans will like it more than football fans. But yeah, so the cutting room floor was tough, Josh. It was tough, Sush. We didn't know what there were some that I thought should be in, some that we kind of went back and forth on some of these, and ended up settling on the 198 that we did, which I'm satisfied with. But I think some of the ones that did not make the book definitely will be in the running for a second book for sure.
Well, I'm excited that there's already going to be a sequel, but let's go ahead and continue our focus on the first one. Now, when it comes to inspirations, I mean this question both sarcastically, but also literally. Do you think of a topic, or does the topic think of you?
That's a great question, man. I think both. I think there is a combination of that. When you're outside with your thoughts, it happens so organically with these haiku. I go outside. There were days I wrote 2, and there were days where I wrote 17. It just, I feel proud of the fact that I never forced it. There were subjects that I wanted to write about, and then I just thought of things, and that led to another thought, which led to another haiku, which led to another haiku. And then, of course, my brain, as you know, is all over the place. So a lot of times there was no rhyme or reason, but I think that's a really deep question. I would say it's kind of a combination of those two.
Yeah, because we're going to get into some of these and then kind of get into some of the stories that go behind them. But for example, do you just sit there and think like, okay, I want to do a haiku about Eric Burns. What can I say about Eric Burns? What can I think about Eric Burns that would make for a good haiku? Or did your thoughts just go in a way and then all of a sudden it ends up with, oh, Burnsy's in my head now?
That's the latter for sure. Like, I didn't think, I got to put this guy in my book. I got to put that guy in my book. If it happened, it did. I mean, these are all like, I kind of wanted to, for most of my career, I've been with the River Cats. Of the 28 years, I've been with the River Cats for most of those years. At Cedar Rapids for a few, and High Desert Fresno, and then Sacramento. So I think a lot of the haiku, baseball haiku, were Sacramento related. I tried to get back in time a little bit with Cedar Rapids and High Desert and Fresno, but most of them are, there's one Joe Nathan that specifically reminds me of Fresno, but I think most of them are Sacramento. So I did think of some players that were kind of Sacramento based, and my memories of baseball with them is in Sacramento. So Burns definitely, Burns Burns could have been on the cover of the phone book in Sacramento, as you know. He was big in Sacramento, and I wanted to definitely capture that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of PCL, a lot of different things from throughout the Pacific Coast League and some Albuquerque ties. So, all right, so let's kind of get into some of my favorites. Now, my original idea was, all right, I'm going to pick 9 favorites. Yeah. Because I thought, 9 innings, there's 9 players in the lineup, and then I wasn't even through 100 pages, and I already had gone over 9. So we're just going to have some fun. So okay. I figured that I'll just say, now I don't want to give away all of the haiku because then no one would buy the book. And by the way, they can go to johnnydoskow.com, right? In order to get a book.
johnnydoskow.com, order right there, and yeah.
What if I want a book personally signed by you?
They're all personally signed because I sell it in my garage. So you go to johnnydoskow.com and sign up. I'll get the name, and you can even put notes on who you want it filled out for. On the website. So so that's johnnydoskow.com.
All right. So we're going to start with the first one, page 5. The title is Dad on Baseball. Dad raised us this way. Never leave a game early. Time no element.
That's right. Yeah. I think I'm a lot of things I'm really grateful that my dad raised us on. Baseball's one of them. And, it didn't matter if the score was 12-1, 15-2. My dad would tell us, we're not leaving this game early. We're not leaving until the 3rd out. I remember going with a friend to a game with his parents, and it was the 7th inning at a Angel game, I think, and they wanted to leave early. And I was like, I don't get it. I couldn't grasp it. It didn't like, what, the game's not over. It doesn't make sense. And so I'm really happy my dad raised me that way. And I think, it's part of the reason I fell in love with the game, because the time is no element, and I'm really grateful that he raised us that way.
Quick note about my dad. He also believed in staying to the end, except for one famous story. But my dad was also a believer, though, that we would stay to the end, but we would walk up the stairs so that we could watch the game from the top, so that as soon as the last out was made, it was an all-out sprint to the car, get in the car to try and beat the traffic home that way. We wouldn't leave early, but we would start to mosey our way so that we could watch the last out in an area where we're right next to the exit and bolt out to the parking lot.
That makes sense. So you're not on those crowds. I like that. He had the same idea. Just smart about it.
All right, this one's really good. Page 9, May 9, 2010. Mother's Day special, Dallas Braden's masterpiece, Lefty's Perfection.
That's right. And I want people to know, the reason Sush is reading 4 lines is because I title all my haiku. A lot of people don't. Some people don't do that, but I put a title on all my haiku. So he's saying the title and then the haiku. But I thought that particular haiku, it was such. I mean, I was emotional watching him. That embrace with his grandmother, and that was such a big moment in baseball. I thought for him to be part of baseball history and throw that perfect game. And I was really happy for Dallas. So that was a moment that I wanted to capture it. That was the actual May 9th, 2010, the actual day that he was perfect. So yeah, I love that haiku.
Is it just a coincidence that it's on page 9 and it happened on May 9th?
Just coincidence.
Just a coincidence. Yeah. So it's a good coincidence. Well, you must have had Braden in the minor leagues. He came through Sacramento, right?
Oh yeah.
What are some of your memories of
him in the minors? Sacramento. He had a 17 strikeout game for us, in the most strikeouts ever for a River Cat in a game. So he had that piece of history, and he came down and rehabbed as well many times. So yeah, he was a character, and I was really happy to see that May 9th, 2010. That was neat.
I remember when Braden was first going through the minor league ranks, and I was covering the A's for the Oakland Tribune at the time. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that he had this screwball, and he was just striking at all these batters with this screwball. And then there was just this perception like, oh, well, it's just because he's got this trick pitch, and that's not going to work when he gets higher into baseball, or, his arm's not going to hold up because of this. by the time that he got to Sacramento, was he still throwing the screwball, or how did he kind of evolve as a pitcher with that?
He threw a screwball. He just had a great changeup, and he's just able to locate so well. I remember a particular rehab assignment he had in New Orleans, and he threw 60 straight fastballs. And he was he was so confident. He was telling the hitters what was coming. He's like, fastball. You throw a fastball, and he dealt. He had so much. The guy had so much confidence, and just every time he went to the mound, it was like Christmas Day. I loved watching him pitch. He's just so enjoyable. But yeah, I think he threw a bunch of different pitches. But yeah, I think he still threw that screwball.
I love that. Here it comes, and it's not 99,
nope.
Right? Because he threw what, like low 90s?
Yeah, sometimes if that. He could sit at 88, 89 and still just find a way. He was incredible.
That's awesome. That's totally awesome. All right, page 16. The title is July 31. Moved at the deadline, he senses his destiny, part dread, part intrigue.
Yeah, that's every broadcaster I think can relate to that. And talking to players, when you get closer to the deadline and guys are apprehensive, there's tension there because they don't know if they're going to be dealt. They're excited, but they're kind of dreading it. These are the they have the relationships with these players, and you go from being with your brothers for years and years. As far as these players go, they're with their brothers year after year, and all of a sudden, bam, they're traded, and it's over. I mean, they still stay in touch, but they're not with them on a daily basis. So I think anytime a guy gets traded, especially a young guy, he has mixed feelings, right? He's torn because he's excited that a team wants him, but he feels betrayed sometimes by the team that's dealing him. He's going to miss all his friends, all those relationships. They're brothers, and I think it's I like that haiku because I think it kind of captures what's going on emotionally for the player.
Yeah, that last week before the trading deadline, I mean, it's emotional at the major league level, but it's more about, what superstar is going to come to this team and push them over the edge. And at the minor leagues, it's different because of what you just said, but there's also some players who are maybe they're frustrated. They think, oh, this organization's not giving me the chance, that if I was in this other organization, I'd be in the major leagues right now. And then some are just totally blindsided by it. And then anytime that someone's name is not in the starting lineup, then all of a sudden, especially if it's a big prospect, like, what does that mean? Or someone gets taken out of the game in the fourth or fifth inning. Is that because, they hurt a hamstring, or is that because a trade just got finished, somewhere? And we're on hashtag hug watch, right? You look in the dugout, and if someone comes out and everyone starts hugging him, then it's like, okay, I think that means that he's been traded. You don't hug someone who pulled an ankle or pulled a hamstring.
Exactly. Yeah, that reminds me too. I mean, it was a different situation. I remember Derek Barton was taken out of a game in the fifth inning, and it was right. I mean, there was all this talk about him getting called up, and so I was saying on the air, I go, this. I'll tell you what, he got taken out of the game. I'm sure that means he's going up to Oakland. I was just going nuts. So I think somebody even tweeted about it, and it turns out he came out because he pulled something, So it's like as a broadcaster, sometimes you speculate on things. I learned my lesson on that one. Just lay back a little bit until But yeah, that is I really. It's funny you talk about that haiku because there are a lot of emotions in that haiku, because players, and you're right, there are players that you talk to in AAA that are dying to get traded. They're like, please deal me. I want a new start. I don't think this organization is understanding what I can do on the field. So, yeah, we've seen that many times. My
first year with the Isotopes at AAA was 2013, and it wasn't the deadline of July 31st, but it was sometime that last week, and we had a doubleheader against the Iowa Cubs. And between games of the doubleheader, I didn't know this at the time, but between games of the doubleheader, the Dodgers acquired Ricky Nolasco, and Josh Wall and Steve Ames, two guys who were in the Isotopes bullpen, were the guys that were going to the Marlins for it. So you had that trade being completed. And then also, what's his name? Lefty, Ian Stewart. Yeah, Ian Stewart, lefty. He was a big prospect at one time with the Rockies, and then he had been with the Cubs, I think, and the Cubs released him, and then the Dodgers signed him. He gets added to the roster. And so, like between games, the doubleheader, you're scrambling to fill the time. You want to eat something. You want to get your lineups done. And all of a sudden I see the lineup and it's like Stewart's. And I'm like, where's Ian Stewart? And the game's going on. You're like, why is Josh Wall and Steve Ames not pitching today? These are the two of the best guys in the bullpen. Yeah. And they haven't pitched in either game of the doubleheader. And then it all starts to make sense once you find out the actual news.
Exactly. I know we've seen that many times. I know we speculate so much in AAA on what's going on. These guys just want their shot, whether it's with their team or with another club.
Another haiku is about a guy that I got to know when I was covering the A's, and this is page 21. The title is Ellie. South Dakota's own, solid player, better man, Mark William Ellis.
Yeah, I mean it says it all right there. Yeah, he was just such a quality human being, and I think I remember I got a nasty email from a listener who was saying, "We get it, he's from South Dakota," because I would say it all the time. Ground ball to short, South Dakota, and up with it on to first base. He was like, "Please, you're wearing it out. We understand where he's from. Okay, we get it." But so that made me want to say it even more, just to bug her, So I would say it again and again. But he was just, Mark Ellis. I mean, what can you say? He's just a great guy, and he was such a solid ball player. He played short most of the time for the River Cats, more second base in the big leagues, but one of the great defensive players, really underrated and tremendous guy.
I think another thing that broadcasters would wear out as well, you mentioned shortstop, and it just made me remember this. When he was at Florida, he played shortstop, and David Eckstein played second base.
That's right.
Then they get to the major leagues, and Eckstein, who doesn't have as good of an arm, plays shortstop for the Angels, and Ellis plays second base for the A's, and they were teammates, and I think they were roommates. They were definitely friends. And so you had these two American League West rivals, and, these two guys who were teammates in college together. And, I always thought that was like an interesting – little game within the game of those two guys.
Absolutely. And I enjoyed watching both those guys play. One thing I remember about Eckstein, and we on a tangent here, but I remember watching Eckstein play, and I was amazed at the guy that did not have a great arm, but he always, talk about an internal clock. And I have a haiku about internal clock in there for shortstops. He had one of the best internal clocks I've ever seen, made up for his arm and the way he was positioned well, and then he always knew how fast the runner was. He always seemed to, and we always talk about 90 feet being the perfect distance, home plate to first base, but he always had that feel for who was running, how much time he had, made up for the lack of arm strength with his intelligence over there at shorts. I always enjoyed watching him play.
The other thing about Mark Ellis reaching the major leagues is that, he was not a top prospect. It was supposed to be Jose Ortiz. Remember Jose Ortiz? He was the guy who was the hot shot prospect, and he's the guy who was going to be the second baseman of the future. Whether or maybe he was going to take the hottest place at shortstop, and now here comes Bobby Crosby. So it's going to be Ortiz that's going to be at second base, and it's going to be Crosby at shortstop. And for whatever reason, it just didn't work out with Ortiz, and Ellis almost became I guess we'll see what Ellis can do. And the next thing you know, he's just this stalwart second baseman for the A's in the early 2000s and carved out a 10, 12-year career in the major leagues.
Yeah, I remember when I had Billy Bean on the air with me, and I asked him about what I call the throw-in Mark Ellis, and he's looking at me like, well, he may have been a throw-in for you, but he wasn't for us. I think they knew what they had in this guy, and he to me he seemed like a throw-in in the deal, but he certainly wasn't, and he proved that. I mean, what a solid player. Yeah,
for sure. Before I get to the next haiku, I'm going to set up this one by saying that there's been numerous times over the last few years that the Isotopes are playing the Sacramento River Cats, and the River Cats bring in this relief pitcher. And I'm looking at his stats, and I'm looking at his baseball reference page, and I'm going through what his numbers were last year and the year before that. And I said so many times on the air, how is it that this guy is still at AAA? All this guy does is dominate the very hitter-friendly PCL, and yet why is this guy still in the minor leagues? And it's on page 27, and the title is Rogers to the Show. Tyler called his twin, could not utter single word. He didn't have to. Sue's probably my favorite haiku in there. And just because the backstory is, and I heard the story basically through Brundage and talked to Tyler about it, but, he and his twin are identical twins. I mean, incredible. They walk the same. They talk the same. They don't pitch the same because, Tyler's, right-hander submariner, and Taylor with the Twins is left-hander over the top. But besides that, everything they do
their voice, it's remarkable. It's almost eerie how similar they are as identical twins, as a lot of identical twins are. But this is uncanny, and they're when everybody been hoping Tyler would get a call up, and just never seemed to get that call. 2-time All-Star. Well, finally when he did, he first person he called was his twin, obviously his brother Taylor, and he couldn't even get the words out. He couldn't. It was the tears were here, and I've been there where the tears are where you can't even talk. And again, he didn't have to. Taylor knew exactly what it was, and just when Brundage told me that story, I was sitting there just weeping in his office, just because not only just for the story itself, but just what he's gone through, how he's persevered, and how much it meant to him to get to the big leagues. Now, one thing Chris Shaw said, I think Shaw tweeted it, that he's seen a lot of call-ups through the years, but he's never seen a clubhouse erupt quite the way they did when Tyler was called up. They've never had more joy for another guy getting called up than that particular day, and it doesn't surprise me because he's such a good dude, and he had earned it, and he proved it last year he pitched up there. But that was an emotional. I got welled up even writing and just thinking back about that moment and that time when he did get called up.
That's the perfect combination for an emotional call-up, because he's a good dude. He's put up numbers. Like every year his ERA is under 2 or just over 2. And you know him. How would he – it's really easy to get super salty when you're doing that. How was he when he's not getting called up, even for just like a September cameo? What was he like as he keeps coming back to the PCL again and again? And it's so much harder as a reliever. You have one bad outing, as one of your haiku mentioned. You have one bad outing, and then it takes a month to get your ERA back down to where it was. So how did Tyler react during all those years of not being where he wanted to be?
Well, I'm sure it was frustrating. I think he put on a face a little bit, but obviously you're putting up those numbers and not getting called up, and how can you not be frustrated? But sometimes that frustration is good. I never really saw the frustration. I'm kind of on the outside, but I would say that I can't imagine that you wouldn't be frustrated after not getting called up, after putting up numbers and proving yourself that long. And that happens to guys sometimes. Some guys slip through the cracks. I mean, you look at a guy, I remember back in the day, Paul Smythe, I was surprised he never got a called up. He put up numbers every year, but the A's just didn't see a use for him. So you'll see that with guys sometimes, and sometimes it's not just about the numbers. But yeah, with Tyler, it was perplexing, not only to Tyler, but I think to a lot of guys around and players and media and everybody on why he wasn't. It was surprising that he wasn't getting the call up, but I think he handled it really well. I think he put on a face. I think he handled it pretty well for all those months not getting called up.
All right, on to page 32. The title is Legendary River Cat, and the haiku goes like this. 3 3-homer games. Cartoon-like right-handed pop. Chris Carter's mystique.
Yeah. There was, it sounds cliche to say when someone's taking BP, you don't go get a cup of coffee or a glass of water. You stay and watch him. Chris Carter, I don't know how many BPs of his I missed. I would always watch him take BP because you just don't know what you're going to see. Like his pop was cartoon-like, and to watch him, hit a ball in Reno that was rising as it went over the scoreboard. He just had that natural pop, and one of those power hitters that I marvel. I love watching him play. Obviously, he wanted to get called up, but we were selfish and had him for a while in Sacramento. And quiet guy, but man, he had some strength, incredible pop, and very just enjoyable to watch. I'm sure you remember him. He's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, when the guys who can put on a show in BP, it's interesting because some of them, like, okay, I just want to work the opposite field, right? I just want to go the other way. And some are just kind of working on things, and then maybe they turn it on in the last round. And then there's other guys that it's like, no, I'm going to start showing off immediately, right?
But even with him, though, Suze, like even if he's working on stuff, he's going to do something impressive. He'll hit one out to right center, or he'll hit one. Even he's working on stuff. His pop is so unique that he put on a show every time, and I didn't miss it.
This is one that's going to make a lot of people smile, even if they're not hardcore baseball fans. Page 40. The title is Dinner at the Yard. Dinner at ballpark. 2 dogs with fixins and beer. For some, nothing better.
Yeah, it reminds me just, when you talk to people and they're, a friend of mine here in town, he's like, one thing I miss the most about going to the River Cats games is sitting down with my dogs and my beer and watching baseball. That's the one thing he goes, that's the thing I miss the most. And it got me thinking like, yeah, that's I think what a lot of people miss about being able to go see minor league baseball right now. I think they miss that just sitting down in the sun, relaxing, whether it's a day game or sitting down late, early evening and sitting down with your hot dogs and beverage and just enjoy some baseball. It's just relaxing. For some, there's nothing better than that. And I think that haiku kind of captured it.
I think that, so when I first read that and I knew that I wanted to ask you about it, my first thought was, I don't know if there is any type of food that goes with a sport the way that hot dogs in baseball do. But then I started to think more about it. I don't know if there's any other type of entertainment, regardless of whether it's sports, where there is a food that goes with that entertainment as much. Like maybe popcorn and
movie. That's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Movie and popcorn is another one that I think, yeah. But
maybe tennis, breakfast at Wimbledon, and they get the help me out here, the strawberries and cream.
Yeah, a little bit. That's a little bit of a stretch, yeah. But I do think the popcorn movies is a good one. That is, and I think you're right. I mean, I don't know of anything like maybe hardcore football fans would think otherwise, but I don't think they're baseball and hot dogs. It does. It goes together, and there's a reason it does. It's such a great tradition for a lot of people.
Is it also because of whatever copywriter for Chevrolet wrote that catchy tune, "We like baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet"? If that had not been written, would we still feel the same way about baseball and hot dogs?
I think we still would. There's something about, especially if you grew up. I grew up in L.A., with the Dodger Dogs or whatever. I know Giant fans would be like, but I think the Dodger Dogs and Vince Scully for around. I think that was, that was a tradition too. So yeah, I think the baseball and hot dogs definitely go together. That's for sure.
There is one individual who has 2 different haiku that are about him, and that is Eric Burns. So let me read the 2 different haiku. One of them is on page 55. Baseball's robo-ump, argue with Burnsy till dusk, human element. And the second one is on page 121. Ran a marathon, 30 consecutive days, only Eric Burns.
Yeah. It's only Eric Burns, that's for sure. He's a machine. He's a different guy, and he's wonderful. And Burns, Burnsy, I think we talked about the robo-ump one time and went back and forth on it. His whole thing is get the call right. That's his whole thing. I don't care, get the call right. We have the technology, take advantage of it. And my whole thing is like, look, I understand it's not going to be perfect all the time. I understand you're going to have Don Dinkinger. I understand you're going to have Jim Joyce. I understand you're going to have, missed calls. As Herzog said, an umpire cost me the World Series, an umpire won me the World Series, right? And
right.
I like that. I like that it's followable. I miss the arguments. I like the fact that baseball, in some ways is so perfect, in other ways it's imperfect. And I like the fact that that umpire can make a costly mistake. I don't like it for that team, but that's where we go back and forth. It's just difference of opinion, and so I will forever argue with Burnsy about that. I think, we just feel differently about it, but of course he's coming from a player perspective. I'm coming from a media perspective where I like that, but he's like, get it right, get the call right. And as far as his Superman, I mean, literally, he ran, on his journey across the United States. He went from California to New York or something, and he literally ran over 25 miles, 30 straight days, which is, it's just you can't even, it's mind-boggling. You can't put your mind around it. You can't put your arms around it. It's impossible. And so, he's triathlon guy. He's Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest 72 holes, I think, in golf. He's amazing. And, I got a chance to see him run for it. He basically runs however many miles, however old he is, he runs that many miles. So when he turned 38, he ran 38 miles that day. When he turns 40, he turned 40 miles that day. He turned 40. That's how he's a machine. It's incredible. I can't even run to the bus stop, right? Like this guy, it's amazing. And so he definitely should be honored with a haiku being Superman.
Well, yeah, he got 2 haiku. Now, do you remember the first time that you met him, or just when you realized, like, okay, he's not just putting on a show today. He's not just like amped up today. That's who he is every second of his life.
Yes, and I'm not surprised in the least that he went into broadcasting and media after his playing days, because I would love to talk ball with him when he was a player. And Burnsy, like me, we're similar in that we're both close talkers. So we would be like nose to nose, and I don't have a small nose. We'd be nose to nose talking, and like it would be like he'd be right there, right in my face, and so the pandemic's pretty bad for guys like me and him, because as close talkers, you got to kind of stay away, right? So
right.
I'm able to close talk. So, but yeah, I'll never forget just having Burns on the team, and his energy every single day was pretty cool.
I have a lot of Eric Burns stories, but the two that stand out in my mind the most when I was covering the A's was that there was a spring training game in Phoenix, and Burns was playing left field, and there was a couple of different balls that he lost to the sun, and the sun can be really hard at Phoenix Muni. But I remember just asking him like some sort of question, like, well, how bad was the sun, or something like that. And Burns' answer was something like, was it the worst sun in the history of mankind that has ever been at a ballpark? No, but it was pretty close, or something like that. And then the other one was, it was a road game. It was somewhere back east. Maybe it was New York or Boston or Baltimore or whatever. And he had a tough day in the field with a number of different plays. I remember like somebody asked him a question about like a play that he misplayed, and he gives like an answer to that. And then somebody else asked him, well, what about, in the 5th inning, like blah, blah, blah play. And he was just like, oh yeah. And he's really candid about that. And then I kind of went in for the jugular, because now there was like a third bad play to ask him about, and he was like, oh yeah. He's like, nice game, Burns. Just third person himself in a negative way. Nice game, Burns.
Right. He does that. I love that. It's just, yeah, that's him. That's phenomenal. That's great. Just chapping himself. So good.
All right. Page 56. One swing changed his life. Travis T. Ishikawa, etched in Giants lore.
Yeah, my sister and I were at that game. I attended that game with my sister, and he says, when I talked to him, he said, not too many days go by that people don't ask me about the home run, right? So he's like, he's in Giants lore forever. Like that swing was, when you think of him, you think of pennant clinching home run, right? And it was amazing.
And to me, the amazing part about it is that Ishikawa at one point was this pretty good prospect. I remember that he was going to go to college, and the Giants took a flyer on him in the 20th round, and they signed him for like way over what a 20th rounder would get. And so they had high hopes for him, and it never quite panned out. He was supposed to be like the next JT Snow, and bounces around a couple of organizations, and then he ends up back with the Giants. And I want to say he's probably spent most of that year with you there at AAA Sacramento. And, it's not like this Joe Carter who's like was a multi all-star. I mean, Ishikawa, it's like, why is he on the team? Why is he on the roster? And like that one swing just changed his entire life, his entire career.
It did, for sure. And what a quality human too. You get to know him. You're like, wow, I'm glad that happened to that guy. Right. He's just quality. And I'll never forget it. My sister is a diehard Giants fan. I mean, she loves the Giants, and she talks about that home run all the time. Like it meant a lot to a lot of people that were Giants fans for their whole lives.
All right. This one on page 77 is something that doesn't happen very often in a game. And it goes like this. Eric Patterson, great name from River Cats past, stole home, stole their hearts.
Yeah.
He stole home?
Yeah. Eric Patterson had to steal a home, and the fans went Nuts.
Straight steal of home?
Straight steal of home. It wasn't a first and third. It was a straight steal of home. Got a great jump. Got in there safe. Boom. He was River Cat fans loved him. Every River Cat fan I talked to loved Eric Patterson, loved watching him play, loved his whole game. He was great with the fans, nice person. He stole their hearts for sure.
The first time I saw somebody steal home was a high school baseball game that I was covering for the Oakland Tribune. And I remember just seeing this guy, and he was getting like a lead, and he was kind of like, there's a couple pitches where he was kind of measuring him. And I remember just thinking in my head, I was not broadcasting, I was just writing then. And I remember just thinking, he's just trying to get in the pitcher's head and just trying to get a balk out of him, But then all of a sudden, here he comes home. And it's almost like you don't breathe when you see someone is running home and there's a pitch being thrown. Is the batter going to swing or not? The catcher has to catch it and then apply the tag. And this high school kid, I'll never remember what his name was. It wasn't even close. So it's almost like he beat the pitch home. He was so fast. Like this straight steal of home, again, I think you just hold your breath when it happens.
It does. I think one of the more exciting things to call as a broadcaster is a steal of home and a suicide squeeze. Those two things, there's something about it's fast. If your timing's off just a little bit, you don't nail the call. So it has to be perfect. It's not even really you have to anticipate it. You just have to be right on it. And so that's always, the steal of home is always exciting for a play-by-play broadcaster. And Eric Patterson was a really exciting player to watch. What he did in the field and, watching him, he never really excelled too much in the big leagues. But I'll tell you, in AAA, he was really fun to watch.
All right, I'm going to skip ahead to page 132 because there's a couple of players who I will mention in a moment, but first let me read the haiku from page 132. Seen it a few times, a pitcher struck with the yips, his teammates whisper.
Yeah, it is really it's really hard to watch, man. It really is hard to watch when you see a player with the yips. It's everybody, I talk to players who have seen it, and it's hard because you want to give this is from their perspective. They say you want to give him encouragement, but you don't really want to address it. You don't want to talk about it. You kind of want to stay away from him, but you want to, so it puts, I feel like his teammates, they whisper to each other about it, but they're almost afraid to approach the particular player when the player does have the yips. I think now it's different because there's, so much, there's so many people to reach out to. You have psychologists on the team, on the big league team you can talk to, and there's, meditation. It's just, I think back in the early 2000s and the 90s, a player had the yips. It was different from the player having the yips now, so but I think it's really, it's scary to watch, it really is. And players that have it, pitchers that have it, it's you just feel so badly for them, and you just hope they can overcome it.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of different names for the yips. Some call it the beast, some call it the thing, some call it the monster. Right. And for like a second baseman, like Steve Sachs, he overcame it. Chuck Knobloch could not. They had to move him to left field. I remember Mackie Sasser, the catcher, had a thing where he couldn't throw the ball back to the pitcher. He had to lob it, and ultimately, it ended his career.
Yes.
Dale Murphy actually had the same thing. They moved him to right field, and it saved Murphy's career. Became a multiple MVP. In the outfield, you think of pitchers, and Mark Wohlers comes to mind.
Rick Ankiel.
Yeah, of course, Steve Blass.
Yeah.
But there's two pitchers. Daniel Bard, who has made this phenomenal comeback with the Rockies. He's off to a great start after being out of the game for a couple of years, hadn't pitched in the major leagues in like 5 or 6 years. And then Tyler Matzik, and, talking about it as a broadcaster on the air, Matzik got sent down by the Rockies to the Isotopes. And he was struggling with his walks, and it was something where he had the yips, and earlier in his career he had kind of beaten it, and then he started to get wild again, and the Rockies sent him down to Albuquerque. And in the first inning, Johnny, oh my goodness, it was just one walk after another, right? And it was like the types of walks where it's like it's not just missing, right? It's like the batter is like starting to move out of the way because the ball is coming toward him. It's just 4-pitch walk and a hit by pitch. And it's just like this collective, oh no, throughout the ballpark everywhere. And I'm just so proud of Tyler. He's come back. I think he's with the Braves as a reliever. He's pitching really well. What Daniel Bard has done. Yeah, I think, again, the word that you used on the haiku, whisper, gets that's what happens. And now we can all kind of like just be so happy for them because you see how it affects their self-esteem. They don't want to laugh. They don't want to smile. They can't enjoy their food. It just becomes this all-encompassing thing in their head.
Exactly. Yeah, it's sad to watch. There was I'm not going to name the pitcher's name, but there was a pitcher with the River Cats in 2004 that had, and they called it the Thing. It's called the Thing too. And I remember Calvin Murray was on Vegas, and this particular pitcher hit Murray with the pitcher tried to throw a slider and hit Murray. I think got him in the helmet. Didn't get him too badly. Got him in the helmet though first. And I remember seeing Murray later, and he goes, "Why didn't you tell me this guy had the thing?" I go, "Like I it was my responsibility to tell you the thing." But it was obvious that this particular pitcher, I think he threw like 16 out of 17 balls, right? Like got one foul ball, but 16, almost basically 16 straight balls, and he was all over the place. He hit a batter. He was a mess, but and it was kind of more of a hush thing back then, kind of a whisper. But now it's a little more, it's talked about a little bit more outlets for, I think, guys to get help with that. But it's when you see a guy with the yips, it's pretty scary.
This is a unique one. I didn't know about this one. This is page 142. Chris Shaw loves ABBA. He ain't afraid to admit, owns his walk-up song.
He does. Dancing Queen is his walk-up song, and he loves it, and he stands by it, and I respect that. And, it's not the most, when guys are coming up to Metallica and other stuff, and he's coming up to ABBA, I respect that. I love that. I think it's fantastic. I love that he's like, he's good with it, man. And it's a catchy tune. And I remember he went up to that walk-up song for the first time, and he had a 3-run homer, and then he did it again, and then he had a walk. Like he kept with that. I think he had a 7 RBI night, and I think 5 of those RBIs, I don't know, I can't remember, but I remember he had a big night when he first put on that walk-up song. And I'll have to go through the scorebook and see exactly what he did, but I know he dominated, and so he stuck with it. He's like, I'm sticking with that walk-up song. And it followed him to San Francisco. They played in San Francisco too. So, he ain't afraid to admit it. He's an ABBA guy, and he's a Dancing Queen guy, and I respect it.
Most of the haiku in this book are about sort of more modern, within like the last 20 years or so. But on page 144, this has got to be something from the early 70s. The title is Spire's Debut. This would be Chris Spire, a longtime major leaguer, then became coach and manager. Turned around, saw Mays. Looked to left, saw McCovey. Shook his head in awe.
Yeah.
Did he tell you about that in particular?
Spire was the skipper that I broadcast for in '97 with High Desert with the Diamondbacks. And he would always joke, we'd work out together, and he would do like 15 pull-ups. And he goes, "Did you do your pull-up? Because I could do one. You do your pull-up?" So, but he was great. I hung out with him the whole year, and he told me that story. He's like, he goes, I'm sitting there, turn around, I see Willie Mays. I look to my left, I see Willie McCovey. I'm like, what is going on here? How is this happening to me? I'm 21 years old. Why? I don't get it. He was just I have chills even talking about that right now. But you imagine that, your debut, and so he shared that, and that stuck with me. I always thought about that. So when I was outside, I recollected that, and I wrote it down, and it speaks for itself. I mean, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I think that no matter who the rookie is who's making their debut, at a certain point, maybe the words don't come to their mind the way that they did for Chris Spire that day. But yeah, you kind of look around, like if you're nowadays and you get called up, and Nolan Arenado is to my right, and Charlie Blackmon, is out there in the outfield, and it's like, whoa, and whether or not those two guys become Hall of Famers, like Mays and McCovey, is kind of a different story. But just the whole idea that just the awe that I'm here, and these guys who maybe they were a poster on my wall, or they were part of my baseball card collection, and now they're my teammates, or now this pitcher's trying to get me out.
It's true. You talk to guys, and I ask them, how long does it take you to get over the ESPN thing? How long does it take you to get over the fact that I see this guy on ESPN and now I'm facing him, and then they get him out and they say, wow, maybe I belong. And then another haiku in there about the 5 straight fastballs where the guy spaces his idle. He throws 5 straight fastballs. The 5th one goes a mile, right? Like, so, but it's true. It's like these guys face these guys that they look up to, and all of a sudden they're there, and they're, it's really mind-boggling. Pretty cool.
Page 167. The title is Stephen Vogt's Road, and it goes like this: backup single A, 2-time Major League All-Star, big league manager.
Yeah, and I'm obviously looking forward a little bit. I feel he will be a major league manager, but that was his road. He was a backup in single A and about ready to give up the game. Like he wasn't sure where he was going with it, and he found a way to persevere, and he's just a great story. He was 0 for his first whatever it was. Everybody knows what he did. He went, didn't get a hit with the Rays despite hitting the ball on the money. Devil Rays at that point. They were the Rays, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So anyway, but obviously he hit the ball hard and never got anything, and then got to the A's. Took a little while with the A's, and then he just got rolling. But I think it's pretty cool that here's a backup at single A, and he goes from there, works his way, and a late bloomer as far as getting to the big leagues, and the rest is history. I think he's going to be a good, solid major league manager. He has the gift. He has the gift with the media. He has a gift with the players. His communication skills are off the charts. He knows the game. He loves the game. He listens. I think I just think he's going to be a really solid league manager.
Do you remember what it was like when he was in Sacramento and he got back to the major leagues?
Yeah. I mean, I remember it well. And the thing is, he never snibbed about being down. That was the one thing I remember when he went to AAA. He never complained once about being. He just, you know what? That's how I feel. I'm going to work my way back up. And I'm telling you, this guy is, say any cliche you want, but this guy is solid. And I think because he's experienced everything as a player. He's experienced being released. He's experienced getting the call. He's experienced being an all-star. He's game-winning hits. He's a game-winning hit in the playoffs. And he's experienced some of the hardships of baseball as well, injuries, everything. I think he can relate to everything that a player goes through, and I think that's going to help him too. But I think just the fact that he got sent down and never complained and worked his way back up says a lot about his character. And he, proved he was a pretty good player. He's a backup right now with the Diamondbacks contributing. So
this one was on page 175 was one where it started to hit home about the coronavirus. And, you may not think that you know somebody, but for people in the A's organization, this one kind of hit home. The title is Webby, and it goes like this: Webster Garrison, you lift everyone you meet. Our time to lift you. Yeah, and
I don't know anybody that has met Webby that has not come around and say, that's a great guy. I love that guy. Like he has lifted everybody he meets. Every time you meet, hey, you feel like you're the most important person in the world when you talk to him. You feel like, wow, that guy's like, he loves everybody, and he lifts everybody he meets. And then, he got coronavirus. He got COVID, and he was on a ventilator for a long time, and still recovering. But it was just heartbreaking to a lot of people because of what he means to so many people. So I think that haiku is basically saying, look, it's our turn. It's our time to lift you after you lifted everybody up. Now it's our time to lift you.
For people who don't know Webster Garrison, explain who he is and what he does, because some people may not know if he's a player, if he's a coach. Just kind of give more about who he is.
Yeah, Webster Garrison's a coach in the A's organization. He's been there for years, done everything the A's asked him. They asked him to go to single A, goes to single A. They ask him to go double A, go to double A. They ask him to do that. Whatever they ask, he has done. And the A's are one of the most loyal organizations. Let's be honest about it. They're a very loyal organization. And so, yes, I think, with Webby, he's done he's a guy that the A's love, and he loves them. And I think he's just one of those guys that everybody who's met him in baseball, from scouts to players to other coaches, management, you meet Webby and you're going to smile. He makes you smile. And I remember when he filled in sometimes for Tony Dee, when Tony DeFrancesco was managing, and the A's have their 4-day break they have for all their coaches. He would come in, and he'd come into New Orleans, and it was always Every time he came in, it was great. He's just a joy to be around, and I'm so happy he's recovering now because he means a lot to a lot of people.
Well, the Duke City gets a little shout out here on page 186. The title is Klein and the Great Frontier, and it goes like this. After game dinners, Frontier in Albuquerque, always with Kleiner.
Always with Kleiner, always great food, and always great stories. We would stay at the Frontier for a couple hours, 2-3 hours after the game. We'd close the place, not really close the place down 24/7, but we would be there late and just eat a lot of food with Kleiner. And Kleiner, by the way, looks incredible right now. He's lost.
Really?
Yeah. Oh my God, he's awesome. He looks so good right now. But we would late night. We would go to Great Frontier, the Frontier in Albuquerque, and we would
on Central Avenue, right across the street from the University of New Mexico. It's an institution, and just we would. It was just I love that. I miss. One thing I miss about it's calling the games, of course, and being around everybody, but it's also the food, like all the restaurants we went to in the different cities. I miss that. That was fun. Where are you going to lunch? Where are you going after the game? I miss that. That's the one aspect. That was always Frontier with Klein. Every night he'd go. As soon as Klein discovered that place, he never didn't go there. Like every night he goes, I go, where are you going? I would joke, like, where are you going? We'd laugh. Like, of course you're going there. So, yeah, it's a great spot. Yeah, so Steve Klein, longtime major leaguer, probably most known for his time with the Cardinals, pitching coach for the River Cats there for a number of years. I remember once I dropped you guys off, and I was like, no, that's all right. I don't like the post-game meal, but I remember I dropped you guys off. I can't just imagine you say, like, all the stories, like the stories that guy must have from his playing career, from his coaching career, like the teammates that he's had, the playoff experiences that he's had, like those got to be just really memorable stories.
Not only the knowledge, Sush, but the way he tells a story. He is the most entertaining storyteller I've ever met. He's just so much fun to listen to, and I could listen to him all night. And he just was all the different people that he knows, the way he puts things. He's got his own language, and it was. He's hilarious. I miss that guy. He was always fun to hang with.
And you said he's lost a bunch of weight and he's looking great?
Oh, he looks awesome. He's doing a lot of walking. He's back home in Pennsylvania, and he's doing a lot of walking. And he looks really happy.
That sounds like a good future podcast. Maybe I'll record it at the Frontier if he ever comes back to Albuquerque.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, do it at the Frontier? That'd be great.
At the Frontier.
Sure. Good. I'm in.
All right. I got 3 more for you.
Yeah.
Because, again, I don't want to give away all of them, but I got 3 more. Page 192. I don't know. You need to tell me the story behind this. The headline is Not My Proudest Moment. And the haiku goes like this. Made kid cry on air. 9-year-old spelling bee champ. He missed decision.
Yeah. Well, there was it was, I think, 2001, my first year with the River Cats. Might have been 2002, but there was a kid. They say, hey, we're going to have a special kid with you on the air. He's a spelling bee champion. He's a homeschooled kid. He's a spelling bee champion. He won this spelling bee title against, I can't remember, but he's supposed to be apparently a really good speller. So in the middle of the interview between pitches, I said, okay, I got one for you. Spell the word decision. And he goes, D-I, and I go, eh. I buzzed him. And I look over, and tears are coming down his face. And I'm looking down back at his dad, and his dad's giving me the evil eye. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? As the 2-2 pitch misses high, 3-2. It said, spell River Cats. And he spelled it right. And I'm like, good boy. Good job.
Wait, did he spell it as it's one word or as if it's 2 words?
It is 2 words, but I didn't care. He spelled it, and I was just desperate for him to spell a word correctly. But, yeah, that was bad. I mean, he was crying. I mean, when I say crying, he was bawling, this kid. He was a young kid. He was 9 or 10. And
you made him cry on the air.
I made him cry on the air. He was bawling his eyes out, yeah.
Way to go, Doskow.
Yeah, nice work. And, I mean, it's it wasn't my proudest moment. Let's put it that way.
And that's why it's the headline of the haiku.
That's
All
right.
2 left, and this is one that hit me more than I thought that it was going to hit me. And when it comes to okay, there wasn't baseball for a long time, and then the minor league season officially gets canceled, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with our lives and what we're going to do summer wise. And the headline for this one is July 4th fireworks. And I know that, again, this is the day that it hit me, because for 99% of minor league baseball teams, the day you look forward to is Independence Day weekend. Every minor league team gets a firework night, either July 3rd or July 4th, which means you're always traveling the morning of July 4th. But to me, that just summarizes minor league baseball and this Rockwell painting that we tried to do every night at the ballpark. And so your haiku goes like this: a 6:05 start, a crisp 2-hour baseball game, stalling for fireworks.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think that's actually a true story, because that happened with the River Cats. We had one year where we had a 4-hour game on July 3rd or 4th, whatever it was. And by the time the fireworks got going, most of the kids were asleep on their parents' shoulders. So our director of marketing, whoever it was, the next year said, you know what? That's not going to happen again. We're going to do a 6:05 start. We're going to do it. And so kids aren't asleep on their shoulders. And what happens? The game was like an hour. It was like, yeah, it was a 2-hour game. 2-hour game. So it was still light. So the entertainer, the PA and everything, they had to stall the game for, they had to stall it for an hour before you could start the fireworks before it was dark. July 4th, it gets dark late. So I'm sure it's happened to a lot of cities where you maybe start a little bit earlier and you have to stall for the fireworks so it's effective.
Yeah, that's happened in Albuquerque. It might have even happened when you were with us, because it wasn't that long ago. And I remember John Traub, I think, our GM, got on the mic and basically, or maybe the PA announcer said, would you rather we start the fireworks now or wait 30 minutes until it's pitch black?
Yeah.
Because two pitchers were just dealing. And the game gets over. I remember there was one time too that we were in Tacoma, and it was I think it was summer solstice, and another like 6:05 start, quick game, and we get to the ninth, and there's no way they could have set the fireworks off. But as it turned out, someone scored in the ninth inning to tie it up, and it went 11 innings. And then by the time the game ended, it was the lights had taken full effect, and you could shoot off the fireworks, and it worked out perfectly. It was like one of the rare times that you wanted a game to go extra innings. At least for me, I never want like the biggest crowds when that most of them are just there for fireworks. I don't want them to have to like wait, right? Like I just want like a 9-inning game, okay, and now you can shoot off the fireworks. But sometimes those things are a little bit different.
Yeah, and that's the thing about AAA. It's like in the minor leagues, it's different than the big leagues. You have to kind of think of these to stall and try to get the fans, keep them entertained before the fireworks can take full effect. Lights take full effect.
Last one is the best one. It's how you end it. Page 199. And this harkens back to the title of the book. It goes like this: ever since her birth, in my broadcast conclusion, my words, good night, Em.
Yep. Yeah, I said that it's funny. I actually, my old athletic trainer, Walt Horn, in 2006, before the season started, I think it was before the season started, we were talking. He goes, you should honor Emmy every night. Say goodnight to her after every broadcast. And I said, that's a great call. I got emotional when he told me that, and so I started doing it. I never stopped. I still do it now. It's only after every nightly broadcast, because during the day, obviously, she's gonna be up a few more hours. But at night, I say goodnight after every broadcast, and it's something that, it's just emotional. It's emotional for me to just honor her with those words. It's funny because I heard in like 5 years later that Billy Crystal movie came out, and in that, he's a AAA broadcaster, and he says goodnight to his daughter on the air, and I'm like, what? They stole that? They've been doing that for 5 years, but it's something, obviously, and as far as the title of the book, it was kind of a no-brainer. My wife actually, we were thinking of a title. What should we name this book? What should we name this book? And she goes, I got it. As soon as she said it, I'm like, I knew for sure. Because I'm going to honor my daughter every night with the Goodnight M. So yeah, I love that. It's something that means a lot to her. As a matter of fact, she won't listen to the games, but she'll turn. Deb will tell her when my wife will tell her when the when it's getting toward the end so she can hear it. She still likes hearing it at the end of the broadcast.
Well, obviously, when she was first born, she couldn't hear it. She wouldn't be awake. But you were saying it to her anyways. Do you recall approximately what age or what year when she first started to realize my dad says goodnight to me on the radio when he signs off?
I think about 5 or 6.
Okay.
About 5 or 6 years old. Yeah, that's I think that's when she started to realize it.
Yeah,
yep. It's emotional, cool. Man.
Yeah. What did Emily think when she found out that the name of your book was going to be Goodnight M?
She was pretty touched. She's 14 now. She was pretty touched by it. Yeah, she loved it. She's actually helped me out. She keeps track of all the addresses and what we send out and everything. So she's actually working for me for the book. So yeah, so I pay her for that, and it's great. She loves it. It was honestly, Sush, it was such a fun project. It happened so organically. I was outside and just writing haiku after haiku, and then I'm like, you know what? After a couple of weeks, I'm like, I'm gonna put this into a book. So it was so cool to kind of the way I didn't just sit down and start writing haiku. I'm gonna write a haiku book. It happened where it was really natural, and I made sure that I never forced it. As I said, there were times where I go out there and didn't write but a couple of haiku, and then other times I wrote a bunch. So I never really had I would say I never really had writer's block because I never forced it. I feel like they write themselves. But a lot of times you do have to fit the syllables in. I'll tell you this, I had a close call because I remember waking up. I wrote the Travis Ishikawa haiku, and I had written all the haikus, and I woke up in a sweat at like 3 a.m. and I said, oh my gosh, the Ishikawa haiku is 576. It was Forever Giant's Lure, right? Forever. Yeah, so that's 6. It was Forever Giant's Lure. And I woke up and said, oh my gosh, I better check these. 9 haiku were off on a syllable, 9 of them. So thank God. So I went back in and I got it all taken care of, and so yeah. And all things revealed, there are, in the original copies, there are 2 misspellings in the book. So the new copies are coming to 500. People say, why are you telling them? I want to get it out there, get it off my chest. There are 2 misspellings in the book. They're embarrassing. They're people's names. Won't tell you what they are. You can figure it out if you get the original copies. But the new 500 that are coming in will be mistake-free. So you have I still have 200 more of the collector's item with the 2 mistakes. People right now have a choice. They go johnnydoskow.com. They can go mistake-free, or they can go the original copy with the mistakes.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
That's why you don't self-edit, Hosher. You don't self-edit. You can't set, and that's one thing. Rookie author, rookie haiku writer. Yeah, you get people to look at it.
One of the things that just makes this whole project really cool that I'm realizing as we've been talking here is that just what a family project it was. It's named after your daughter. She's helping you with the addresses. Your wife comes up with the title. Your sister lets you know that haiku is singular and plural. She comes from a writing background and a bookstore. And so it's just such a great family experience for you guys all to contribute to this.
Yeah, appreciate that. My brother, who's my idol, I'm not even 1/100th a writer he is. His haiku, they're another level, but he really liked the book, which made me feel really good because he's one of the smartest people I know, and he's I respect his opinion, and he really did like the book. So it really was a family project. It was pretty cool.
All right, Doski, this was fun. I love it. Love talking to you about the process and hearing all the stories. And we only did like a 5th of them, which it's always great seeing you and talking to you. But this was I really enjoyed this.
Me too. Appreciate that. Hey, johnnydoskow.com. Johnnydoskow.com. Thanks.
What's the website again?
Shameless plug.
Wait, how do you spell johnnydoskow.com?
Yeah. Well, Doskow, johnnydoskow.com, Doskow. That's right.
All right,
Josh. Sush.
Yeah. Be well. I know that we'll be in touch plenty, but once again, thanks for your time. Congratulations. This is very impressive.
Thanks, my friend. Thank you.
That was Johnny Doskow, and this is Life Around the Seams.